Welcome to this explainer. Okay, today we are unpacking a really fascinating high stakes topic. When we think of prison security, our minds usually jump straight to those towering concrete walls, razor wire, and heavy steel doors, right? But the truth is, the absolutely crucial security measures aren't always physical at all. They are actually the complex, kind of hidden administrative systems that truly keep Montana's correctional facilities secure day in and day out. So, today we're breaking down the intricate anatomy of contraband control inside Montana's correctional institutions. Now, to really grasp why this system matters so much right now, we've got to look at the immense system-wide pressure Montana is operating under. Just look at this number, 600. In April 2026, the Montana Department of Corrections literally had to transfer 600 male inmates completely out of state. We're talking all the way to Mississippi, just to manage their prison capacity while new units are being planned. I mean, think about the sheer logistical strain that represents. Operating a correctional facility is incredibly difficult on a good day, but overcrowded facilities, they are fundamentally harder to search, harder to monitor, and far more difficult to secure consistently. Okay, let's dive into this. Here is our roadmap for today. First, system under pressure. 2, more than just weapons. 3, searching the pressure points. 4, what happens after discovery? And finally, guarding the guards. So, starting off with Section 1, system under pressure. Operating under strain in Montana.
Moving right along to Section 2, more than just weapons, redefining the threat.
When you hear the word contraband, you probably picture hidden shivs or smuggled narcotics, right? And yes, for sure, those are absolutely included. But the Montana Department of Corrections uses a remarkably broad legal definition. According to their policy, contraband is essentially any item an inmate is simply unauthorized to keep. That includes an excessive amount of otherwise approved items, any altered item, or really any item being used for a purpose other than its intended one. This definition has to be incredibly comprehensive because honestly, the reality of institutional security absolutely demands it. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the contrast. Over on the left, we've got your expected obvious dangers, drugs and sharpened instruments. But look at the right side, procedural contraband. Inside a prison, a completely harmless-looking object, say just a toothbrush or some extra bed sheets, can become dangerous simply through modification or excess. Having too much of a normal item can literally become currency. It can be traded, used to intimidate others, hide evidence, or just flat out defeat security rules. The system has to focus just as much on how an item is being used as what the item actually is.
All right, Section 3, searching the pressure points, layered defenses, and routine operations.
So the policy at Montana State Prison requires layered screening that's built right into their daily operations, not just as, occasional enforcement. They use clothed body searches, cell searches, and canine-assisted searches. They even utilize whole-body security screening devices that use low-dose X-ray technology to detect items hidden on or even inside a person's body. The key here is they never rely on just one single method. They layer them, overlapping the security nets to catch absolutely anything a previous layer might have missed. It's like a giant, continuous puzzle. And a single checkpoint is never enough. Because of this reality, contraband rarely breaches the perimeter through dramatic escapes or Hollywood-style break-ins. It actually enters through the most mundane, everyday operational channels. The flow of outside property, mail, package deliveries, visitors, volunteers, and even facility vendors. These are the real primary pressure points. The system literally has to remain vigilant during completely legitimate, everyday contact. Just to show you how vulnerable these everyday channels really are, look at this specific anecdote from local facilities. Flathead County's detention center essentially had to completely shut down a specific risk avenue. They state they do not accept personal inmate mail directly, specifically because of contraband issues. That is wild, right? It perfectly demonstrates how local rules have to adapt the very real, constant threat posed by seemingly harmless incoming property. Moving to Section 4. What happens after discovery? The critical chain of custody. Now, finding a hidden item isn't the end of the story. It actually immediately triggers a really rigid administrative process. Contraband control is just as much a legal issue as a security one. Step 1 is discovery, sure, but then it rapidly moves to confiscation, detailed reporting, secure storage, and finally disposal and record keeping. Staff have to be able to prove exactly what was found, where it was found, who handled it, and how it was stored. This rigid chain of custody is absolutely crucial. It preserves vital evidence for court and protects the integrity of internal investigations, preventing any disputes down the line. And that brings us to Section 5, Guarding the Guards, Internal Accountability and Integrity. So, what about the staff? I really want you to ask yourself this, because it highlights a major, universally acknowledged security vulnerability in literally any institution. Think about it. The most advanced physical fences and high-tech X-ray scanners are completely useless if the people who are given the keys to walk through the gates abuse their access. So the crucial point here is that contraband prevention relies just as heavily on internal accountability as it does on outward-facing security. The Montana Department of Corrections explicitly states in their policy that any staff found to introduce contraband into a facility are subject to strict investigation. They recognize that the internal introduction of contraband can be just as dangerous, if not more so, than outside smuggling. Keeping a facility safe requires constant staff training, supervision, and rigorous accountability at absolutely every single level. Now, keep in mind, all of these layered policies have to be applied across a massive, incredibly complex landscape. Montana's correctional network isn't just one single building. It includes state prisons, contracted facilities, county detention centers, and, as we talked about earlier, out-of-state placements. Maintaining procedural consistency across a system this diverse, with all its varying layouts and different staffing patterns, is monumental, especially during times of high-capacity stress. But what's genuinely commendable here is that Montana makes many of these complex policy documents publicly available. This provides a clear, transparent view into exactly how the state neutrally balances safety, institutional order, and inmate rights. For families, attorneys, journalists, and everyday community members, this transparency is absolutely vital to understanding those hidden gears of the justice system. Which brings us to the core takeaway of this entire explainer. These exhaustive, deeply detailed daily procedures we've explored today, the broad definitions, the low-dose body scans, the mail inspections, the strict chain of custody, they all serve one singular purpose. Strong contraband control is literally the bedrock of violence reduction. It stops drug and weapon trafficking, and it ensures a safer, far more stable facility for the staff working there, the people incarcerated inside, and ultimately the public on the outside. I want to leave you with a final, provocative thought to consider. When you look at how comprehensive this hidden perimeter truly is, you kind of have to ask yourself, are the true walls of a modern prison actually made of concrete and iron? Or are they built entirely out of invisible administrative processes, endless daily vigilance, and unyielding staff integrity? It's honestly a marvel of bureaucratic vigilance that keeps the entire system intact.